much for coming and for inviting me here. I'm very excited, actually. I was planning for this trip since now 3.5 years. And every year something happened, I end up like going to somewhere else. So again, my name is Ibrahim. You can tell from my accent, I'm not from the US. I'm from a country called Jordan. I think all of you know it. And I came to the US around 18 years ago. I did my undergrad back in Amman in Jordan, and then I came to the US to do my MBA. And after I finished my MBA, I started my PhD in the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And 9 years ago, I got hired by Columbia. I joined the faculty at the cell and gene department. And the first individual I knew about before I came to Columbia is Professor John, actually, by a common friend. And when I came here, the first face I saw is John's. Like, I'm happy that you are here, actually. So that's fantastic. So, so for today is, can we dim this, or you will be able to see it? And the clicker. As yeah. So thank you for mentioning the 20 under 40. So basically, I got the award 2 months before I turned 40. So if I waited 2 months, it will not happen. Excellent. So basically, in the agenda today, it's far as Rina was mentioning. I got engaged with the World Economic Forum in Switzerland for the last now 5 years in discussing where's the future of construction heading. It started by my colleague Michael Boller. Oh, that's too much. Actually. Yeah, that's too dark. Actually. We can open the lights maybe in the back. Yeah. Where he came from, he came from the real estate development group, and he said, like, okay, when we talk about real estate development, we have to understand how we are building this real estate. We have to understand not just the real estate, but also the urban infrastructure as well. So we started this kind of initiative, and I got nominated to Michael to join him around 5 years ago to put together kind of the roadmap where we're heading. And then we invited many individuals from all around the world to join the team to think together, because if we want to think about where's the future of construction heading, we want to highlight what best practices, what lessons learned we are getting from not companies, but from countries, from different regions, from engineers, from contractors, subcontractors, architects, and you name it. So I thought about it, and I felt the best the best approach to look at that is to highlight several of what I found interesting statistics, and as well as findings we had in the last 4.5 years. Every year also we presented this work at Davos in early January, around mid-January, and it was well received. And what happened, we did some publications, and what I'm gonna present here is the first stage, and I'll be more than happy to share the publication with everyone to dig deeper into the work we did. So in the beginning, I was thinking, like, you know what, let's talk about first, what's the construction industry environment look like? And then to go on to what we think based on the colleagues, and I'm gonna share with you who contributed to the study, not just me and Michael, but what we believe the mega trends that shaping the industry, not just in one country, but globally. And then moving to a framework, industry transformation framework we call, of business practices. And for the time limitation, what we have is, I said, like, you know what, I'm gonna highlight maybe 2 examples to share with you. And all the rest of the examples we have in the report, okay? So our industry is not a new industry. We are building structures since ages, hundreds and thousands of years. And also, based on the last, let's say, 100 or 200 years, the construction industry techniques and methodologies keep evolving with time. Some of this evolvement with time could be related to reduce cost, reduce the time, increase the quality, increase which I'm happy about it, recently started to get more focus on is safety, environment, health, which is something fascinating. Despite all this evolving, however, unfortunately, we're just like chit-chatting a little bit about the productivity. The productivity of our construction, from my colleagues from the Boston Consulting Group, another colleagues I have from McKinsey, the World Economic Forum, PwC, most of the strategy management companies that work in our industry highlighted the flatness or a little bit drop in productivity in our sector compared to other industries. And has a lot of reasons about why this is happening. With such a drop in the productivity, still make me think about, okay, what's kind of the characteristics of the environment that we have or we work at that cause that such drop in productivity or flatness in productivity for almost 50 years, 55 years. So we highlighted this table from two things: the uniqueness that we have from the characteristics in the market, in the industry, as well as we operate in a very complex client context. I know this is small, so I'm going to present it to you. I don't like to read from this. But one thing I highlighted that I found also similarities we have here in India was the high fragmentation in the industry. In the US alone, we have more than 750,000 companies, engineering and construction companies. Only 2% have 100 employees and above. 80%, 10 employees and below. When I came, I was speaking with several of my students that just finished in the last 9 years with me, just like three days ago, and I was telling them that, it's like, oh yeah, professor, we have the setup here. We have like, some of the companies we might have 100, 200, 900, but not that big. And it is easy, and the barrier for entry for our market is easy. It's not that challenging, it's not that difficult. So we can literally enter, if we can, just like 1 and 2, we have an idea, start up, and we just go ahead. Not only that, this is I don't lie, which is the low profitability. If we are lucky, I'm talking now about the US, and I start to notice it in other countries as well. If you are lucky, the margins that you have between 2 to 5%. 5% you are lucky. That's why, like, even a couple of the students from India are saying, like, so the margins for you guys is worth it. It's like, professor, you know what? We are smarter than you. We have combined the contracting business with the real estate. It's like every single one I spoke with, I said, oh, you do contracting? He said, no, I do contracting and development. What about you? And development. Oh, it's like, okay, so it seems it's kind of a thing, a trend here. I'm still like new from the industry here, but it's looked like they do both. I like also what we visited today in the morning. It's just like outstanding. Shapurji, Palunji, right? It's also what the type of work that they are doing, the project we visited, it's just like outstanding. But still, low profitability in our industry. So this is kind of quick 2 examples from the characteristics or unique characteristics we have in our market. And we also operate in a very complex client context. Insufficient funding. We started to notice recently in the US perspective, the rise of PPP, public-private partnership. And we say, oh yeah, we are doing PPP. Personally speaking, no, we don't. We are really bad in doing PPP in the US. If we want to do it really correctly, my humble opinion, we have to learn from Canada. Canada, our neighbor, they're doing it for a good number of years, and they're doing it correctly, and they have a really good data, good case studies to work from. In the US, regulations, legislations on PPP from all 50 states, it implemented in around 34 states. So still, we are very late on that. That's why there is more movements now also to project financing and how to be innovative in bringing more funding to build our infrastructure and our buildings. Also, we over preference for lowest bid. Several countries, since I started the Global Leaders in Construction Management, or in short GLCM, the idea is to take around 8 to 10 students from the graduate program to visit the country outside the US to learn from them and come back. We went to Malaysia, to Thailand, we came in here to India, I went to China, went to Middle East in several countries, Qatar, UAE, went to Turkey. Mainly, they talk about design, finish, build, lowest build, then build. And recently, it's like, so why there is no movements more and more to design build? Or IPD, integrated project delivery, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute from now. So there is over preference on the lowest bid most of the time. So basically, we have a very unique construction environment. And this uniqueness and these characteristics we have, what we think and believe also helped to keep the flatness in productivity and a little bit of drop. Not only that, we thought about like, okay, do we have any kind of challenges? And we discussed several internal challenges in the market, and I highlighted here around the three. The first one is we don't do a good job in knowledge transfer from a project to a project within the same company. Very few companies actually institutionalize the process. So the process, me, my colleagues, everyone, if we want to generalize it, it started by developing the plan and then implement the plan, detect any deviations that you have in the plan, determine the impact based on these deviations, make the corrections, and then implement again, and it's called a circle. Recently, we started to find some case studies that highlight a couple of companies like Floor institutionalize such a process and try to take these lessons learned from project to project to project moving forward. Skanska in Sweden, they do the same thing. But very few they do that, and they heavily rely on who's the PM, who's the project manager in that project. To that, make me think about data. Data, we have very weak project monitoring. Manufacturing industry, they're doing an amazing job of tracking the process in a way if there is any problem happen, they know how to track it and they know how to provide some remedies. I got hired by Skanska London around 2 years ago to understand what we can learn from several manufacturing industries, specifically aviation, shipbuilding, and automobile, just to see if the investments in innovation in these industries, is it just like to increase your chance in the competition, or is it to increase your profit margins, or neither, or combined? And we noticed from the manufacturing industry, they're doing much better than us in data. Recently, I'm also engaged with the Skanska US in another project that in the meeting that was a year ago when I entered the meeting, I was like speaking with the guys from Skanska, and there's another guy came, shake my hands, like, where are you from? It's like, yeah, I'm working from Google. It's like, Google? What do you mean with such a company? It's like, yeah, that's why we're here. We're talking about data. So Skanska did a very fantastic good job about collecting more and more data, and now all of a sudden we're trying, as a Columbia Skanska, to collaborate with Google to highlight what's the data we should do about. So it made me think, so instead of reinventing the wheel, instead of having collaboration between companies, there is definitely some collaboration between industries. That's why that project, personally speaking, I'm very excited to see where it's headed. One last thing is the process. The conventional construction process is very sequential. I did not see the most traditional one almost in every country I've been to from that I just mentioned. In Europe, in the Middle East, here, based on my understanding, in China, it's just like, what's you're gonna build, design, build, and build. More and more IPD is showing, which is hopefully will be increasing, integrated project delivery, which you have all the stakeholders from first stage of what you want to build come together and think where we're heading next. It might take longer time, but it will help reduce a lot of conflicts moving forward. In the beginning, from productivity perspective, my humble opinion, it might slow it, but when you catch the curve, the learning curve, it will catch up. So this is what we believe is kind of the construction industry environment. Now, that's what I call the status. Based on the status, we look at what else happening around us that could affect where we're heading for the next couple of decades. And we came up with what we call a mega trends, and we divided it into 4 domains. One is market and customers, sustainability and resilience, society and workforce, politics and regulation. And I'm going to highlight a couple of examples from each one of these trends that shaping our industry. Market and customers. Around 3 or 4 years ago, I had a discussion with a colleague of mine that he's sponsoring my research, the chairman of a company called AECOM. And AECOM, in the early 90s, it was a small company. And all of a sudden, it reached around 100,000 people. So it's like, hey, John, what do you think about the market and what's happening with the projects? Like, you know what? I still remember late 80s, early 90s, when we win a project that worth $500 million, we celebrate for an entire week. Now we're not talking about millions anymore. We're talking about billions and billions. I had the chance to go and visit the Dubai Mall several years ago by the PM by Turner, CEO by Turner, and by itself, you're talking about 12 million square meter total area. And this is not impressive anymore. They started to become now all the news. They start to have like even bigger and bigger, and comes with the bigger, you will have more complex, how you want to deliver it, how many stakeholders or teams coming together, work together to build the project. Not one company can take the risk to take it from A to Z. Crossrail in London, you are talking about $22 to $25 billion to build a Crossrail. Riyadh Metro, another 22 or 23 billion US dollar. Divided into 5 packages, each package from the Riyadh Metro, around 4 or 5 companies leading that package. So, speaking about complexity of the project, everyone I think maybe heard about Belt Road Initiative. This around I think 5 years ago, President Xi, he announced the Belt Road Initiative or the New Silk Road or the One Belt One Road. They have all the names, but my understanding is Belt Road Initiative is the name at the end, where they're connecting by land and sea around 65 countries and estimated as a beginning around $1 trillion US for the initiative. It's like, you're talking about the T now, not the B. So it's changing, it's going more up. Even us as in education, we started first by introducing the construction management, moved to project management, and now we're moving to program management. How are we going to teach that? So this is one from the market and customers. Another example is aging infrastructure. 1 in 3 German railway bridges are more than 100 years old. In the US, I would like this example, but I'm proud to explain it. I'm proud to say it, because we have to do something about it. Every 4 years, ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers, they publish what we call a report card, infrastructure report card, to evaluate, to give rating or a grade for each infrastructure. The combined infrastructure gave for 2017 D+. You said I have students here. Did I give you D+ ever? I can't remember I gave D+ ever. That's a fail. Why I put this picture here at the I-35 in Minnesota? Because I did my MBA in Minnesota, and I used to drive on that bridge every week, more than 10 times, like going back, forth. It's like, when it fails, like collapse, killing some people, it's like, what's happening with our infrastructure? It's not a wake-up call anymore. So any infrastructure, it's a serious problem. Demand in developing countries. We did a survey based on our study, showed more than 65% showing that next decade's growth in construction will happen in emerging countries. I like this by the economist, highlighting until the early 1990s, the highest record for the tallest building always happened, most of the time happened in North America. All of a sudden, changed. China, Middle East, and even like 2 years ago, I was invited by an architect, Mr. Santiago Calatrava, to where he designed this tower in Dubai. And in the presentation, they showed like the tower is going to be taller than Burj Khalifa. I was like, what? Why? For me, I don't care about the why in specific, but I care about an engineering challenge point of view. I care about like, how are you going to build it? You're telling me this is kind of, some individuals from Parsons was telling me like, yeah, we call it kind of the new Eiffel Tower of the Middle East, where you have, I think, around 400 to 500 meter. We're speaking about meter in India, right? Excellent. I came from Jordan and I like the meter, that's why. Or it's a shaft full of elevators, and all of a sudden, in 600 meters, like you will plot something for an observatory decks. And the explanation they gave me, because Santiago Calatrava, for those who don't know him, he's more a bridge guy. He loved design bridges. So he ended up putting all the cables to sustain the tower because it's very thin, just like literally elevators in the core, taking you all the way up. And speaking of innovation in the construction, I told him like, okay, when you're telling me you're building something like that, and you're telling me you're putting all these elevators here, so what are you gonna do with the cables of the elevators? It's gonna be heavy weight. Where are you gonna put them? And when you go all the way up, how are you gonna do it? So Michael Calatrava, son of Santiago, was telling me we are experimenting with another mechanical engineering company, I think somewhere in Europe, about cable-less elevators, which the same concept of the maglev. It's like, that's what I like. Don't tell me why you're building it. Don't tell me how you're gonna get the money back for the $1 billion this tower, but tell me literally how you're gonna build it. That's, for me and my students at least, we love it. So it is a fantastic project, and it's all happening more and more in developing countries. We just spoke about the massive financing need, but the interesting part about it, when we look at the difference between the demand and supply for not just one report or not, based on extensive literature from several of my colleagues from several companies, highlighted around $1 trillion needed as an annual investment just to close the gap of infrastructure development globally. That's something definitely we need to think about moving forward to 2035. That's the start. Sustainability, we're talking about it. Sustainability and resilience is the second domain or trends that we believe is changing the way we're doing business. The first one to talk about is climate change. It's being reported 3 times more natural disasters last year than in 1980. The examples that I can think of, 2004, what happened in the Indian Ocean, earthquake, series of tsunamis hitting around 14 countries, killing more than 250,000 people. 2010, Haiti happened. Earthquake around 25 kilo away from the center of the capital of Haiti, killing more than 220,000 people. And I just put also some of the numbers here from the Hurricane Maria in 2017. And it's keep coming, and I lost track about how many coming more and more. So it is a serious problem, and it's happening. Despite what we hear in the US sometimes. Sustainability requirements. In I think November 2016, the COP21 in Paris, 196 countries came together, they signed it. Around 155, I believe, they moved forward so far in what we need to do for the new environmental policies and regulations. Even from a US perspective, when Mr. Trump tried to discuss pulling from the agreement, we're talking about 50 countries within the US, and each country, they kind of have its own rules, and a lot of states, as well as counties, they didn't stop, they keep moving forward. They want to do changes in sustainability. For our industry, we are the #1 consumer of raw materials. This thing what happened in mid of 1990s, 1995, U.S. Agree Building Council came up with a new ranking system called the LEED. In 2000, I remember it kickstarted really heavily, and now it's all around the world. Also in 2012, Envision came to life. Envision, which is more focused, similar to the LEED, but more focused instead of vertical construction, more in the infrastructure construction. And what we need to do to build more sustainable projects, more environmentally, more healthy projects for our communities. And of course, I think that all this tracking system started in UK by the British, introducing the BREEAM, I believe. And the BREEAM, and also the EDGE, and there's many, many others coming just for the last 10 years. So that's from sustainability and resilience. The third domain that we believe changing more and more the way we're doing the business here is society and workforce. There are identified more than 200,000 people moving to cities almost every day. That's huge for us. This is statistics that I need me just pause it a bit to think about. This morning I was telling the students, I shared with my team an article that I read in the Wall Street Journal, highlighting actually the metro that happened here is happening currently in Mumbai. A couple of statistics and numbers showed from the article that it made me think. One of them I can share with you is, in the last 5 years, the number of cars increased more in Mumbai around 56%. It's like, that's huge. It's most dense city, and there is more still people coming to Mumbai. That's a problem. That's something. When we talk like the second density city in the world, based on the article, it's 3 times more dense than New York. And I struggle in New York. So I can't imagine how it is here. And even when you think about urbanization, you're thinking about many aspects. First one comes to mind always is housing. Not just housing, affordable housing. More and more in a rise. Health, sanitation, education, crime, environment, you name it. More and more fight for talents, and more aging workforce. Let's look around 25 years ago, in the US alone, the average age of worker were around 36. Now the average age of worker is closer to 44, 45. So one of the sources we found highlighted there are around 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day in the US. With that, the productivity of the construction sector keep dropping with that. It's just something that we need to pause. Even my students, when I speak with them, I found like something very strange happening in the last 9 years. I did a study focusing on the difference in generations. We have 5 generations currently, from traditionalists all the way to baby boomers, Gen X, millennials or Gen Y, and Gen Z. It shows that baby boomer stays in a company on average of 15, 16 years. Gen X stay in a company around 6, 7 years. Millennials are about 18 months. It's like, this is one fact that it's very interesting. So I started asking my students, like, so why do that? Like, some of the answers like, I'm bored, like the construction moving like really slow, there's no technology. And when they speak with some of other students in electrical and computer science, they talk about like Facebook, they talk about like Google, they talk about like Twitter, Microsoft, and all that type of nice gadgets that they use, and what kind of things that they can create. That's outstanding. A year and a half ago, I got invited to join an advisory board for just a startup in Silicon Valley that highlight AI, artificial intelligence, in construction. So I was like, okay, well, let me know about what you guys are doing. And they told me, it's like, okay, can I ask you, who's your team? And they told me, our team are all computer science. 3 of them PhD from Stanford. All the rest are computer science from other universities. Like, so where's the construction? It's like, no, there's no perception. That's why you are here. It's like, but you started the company. It's like, yeah, that's why we want just the advice. We don't believe that for those who we spoke with, that they will be able to jump, to change the mentality of how we do business and accept us. There is something literally coming as an AI in the industry. It's like, that's interesting. Speaking also about the Google project. Politics and regulation. Politics and regulation, first thing when I speak with millennials, it's like, politics and regulation, it's like, oh yeah, corruption, no, hold on, it's not about just corruption, but I put it here, and I even started to integrate it in my classes by, some of the students here attended that class. I teach class about ICM, as my colleague here, Amai, told me about it. It's called International Construction Management. And one of the students were like, no, it's ICM. It's like, oh, I like it. It's a cool name. I will keep it. And the General Counsel of Turner, for the last 30 years, he's been the General Counsel for Turner Construction, always come to my class to just present the area of corruption. And the title is How You Can Survive as a CM, as a construction manager, without corruption in a corrupted world. So it's interesting. It's very interesting, and it's all over. In the same survey we did, like around 50% of the respondents showing, and they believe there is a corruption happening, not in Eastern Europe, we're talking about also Western Europe. I believe in the US, Middle East, you name it, in Asia, everywhere. And in different levels. Also, another example for politics and regulations is geopolitical uncertainty. In geopolitical uncertainty, my colleagues from the web, so like, okay, you're speaking, we'll share this with you, and it keep updated every around 2 years. I participate in it, Trish Colligan, she participated in it, and he said, like, just like share it because it's something just to highlight what's the global risks happening all around the countries that they're doing business in. And I deliberately kept this as small letters, actually. I can tell you there's like technological, there's economical, social, environmental, you name it. But there's something here like empirical. Can you guess what that is? Not my students, because I think you read the report. The cyber threats. So the identified as cyber threats happening as we all read what's happening in the last just like year and a half. It's very active, very dynamic. Facebook, Cambridge Analytics, Google went to testify. It's keep increasing more and more. So it is and moving as industries from the first industrial revolution to the second to the third, and now we are experimenting the industry 4.0. All what we are talking about how we are building on the Internet of Things platform. So it is, I believe this will keep increasing. What to do? The team at the World Economic Forum with our knowledge partner, BCG, as well as Columbia, Cambridge, and many other sub-companies or subcontractors to big companies as major general contractors, to engineering firms, to technology firms, all came together and said, okay, let's pause here for the next 4 years and keep updating each other to understand what we do good, that it is working. We can highlight in the report as a case study, or more important, that everyone from the industry will like it, is best practice. So from all of us here, it was hectic, to be honest, but at the end, my humble opinion, I believe it was a very good output. So we came up with what we call an industry transformation framework. And that framework highlights 3 actors and their roles moving forward from the best practices we are collecting them. One actor is what a company should do as a company by itself. And then what a sector level, an industry in general, collaboratively, what we should do together moving forward. And then from a government perspective. And for today, and we highlighted some titles from a company level. Let's take this as an example. We went to technology and innovation in materials and tools. And each box here highlight a best practice, and in the report, in that best practices, we tell you what's the company who did that best practices and what's the result. Processes and operations, innovation in business models and strategy, all the way, which I believe is supposed to be number one, is people. The culture we have in companies and in industry and in government, the people mentality needs to be changed in a way where we going next. So that's what I believe is a very good point that we need to highlight. That's why the two examples I'm going to highlight, one of them is this. Then, as a collaborative approach and joint industry marketing, what we need to moving forward. A lot of organizations we have in the US, they are doing a fantastic job, but still not to the level that I believe, personally speaking, we need to do better. And all the way to the, of course, regulations and policies and public procurement from the government agencies. We did a survey based on the findings of this framework, and from all those who participated, plus in their companies who can participate in the survey. And so, like, what do you think more important from all these points? And I want to highlight the top two. One, luckily I found it is people. Second is what we need to do more in adopting in new technologies, new innovative materials and tools. So with that being said, let's start by the technology with the two examples. I work closely with Boston Consulting Group, BCG, in the US, and they highlighted a very fantastic infographic about the 10 promising technologies in the ENC, engineering construction industry, moving forward that could have potential. And several of this, I believe you all know it. I'm not gonna touch base in each one of them, but let's look at building information modeling. And when we discuss BIM, or VDC sometimes, which is the more general term for it, visual design construction, I always say that it's all the news. It's not technology. It's supposed to be now. A lot of cities started to implement it as major standards. From London, from Singapore, from Dubai, from New York, several cities around. So when a company comes to me and is like, oh yeah, we do BIM. It's like, yeah, this is supposed to be the norm. Tell me what else you do. And even when you do BIM, they just look at it from a 3D visual perspective. You don't have just 3D. You have also 4D, you have a 5D, you can integrate the budget, you can integrate the cost. And guess what? These companies actually implementing it with successful case studies. So it's back to the people. It's like, no, it's going to take a long time. We have, Ibrahim, profit margin, 3-4%. You want to invest in something like that? No, it will take us a while. So even the R&D in construction is not even there. I don't like to use this word, but it is actually the bloodline of each industry, the R&D. Right? Prefabrication, modular construction, a group in China, it's called Broad Group. I think all of us heard about it. Built 57 stories in 19 days and put it in the videos. Everyone look at it. They moved the construction process for the entire thing to factories. 90% of that process moved to factories. I agree with them, they built it in 19 days, but the planning for it took around almost 2 years. So still, the planning is important, but once you plan it right, institutionalize it right, you'll be able then to standardize it for later. We talked about big data, predictive analytics with the example I gave from the company in Silicon Valley of introducing a new algorithm to make the cameras in the construction side more smart. That's the company I just mentioned to you a few minutes ago, and I was like, what do you mean like making the camera smart? It's like, hey, we have this algorithm to identify some of the objects, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, but how are you going to get fund? It's like, we're working on it. In the summer, we closed a fund of 3.5 million for them by the founder of eBay. It's like, so you're not even getting the money from our industry. It's like, no. It just like made me think more and more that why there is even, like, I believe our industry is ready for disruption. But it needs a new culture moving forward. Autonomous construction, autonomous vehicles and bulldozers is actually being implemented in the mining industry for a while. So all of a sudden there's a Japanese company. They started to work with drones to send the drone as a survey to the construction site to know where exactly they're gonna excavate. And all of a sudden it's just send the data to the bulldozers, sending all these equipments, and while the workers, the engineers, just as an operators, just like following and collecting data. It's happening, it's changing, but not to the level that I'm hoping for. I hope it will be even more. 3D printing, I believe, still is in the infancy stage. Still like slow, still costly. I'm happy to see the company that we worked on in the project in Amsterdam. They built this 3D, they printed a bridge, pedestrian bridge. It's fantastic, but still, the tip of the iceberg here. With that, around 2 or 3 months ago, I was reading a book called Thank You for Being Great. I don't know if some of you read it before, for Thomas Friedman. I was fascinated about this graph that he put together. It's like by his professor, my understanding from the book. And they were saying is, let's think about two curves. One of them is the technology curve and how the rate of change based on time is happening and what's happening recently with the rate of change of technology. Exponential increase. And then, before I read the book, before I looked at his presentation, it's like, yeah, but why this is concerning? Why this is concerning? Construction, yeah, we don't do a good job, and technology adoption, blah, 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 but is there something other than that? And then he answered that for me, and he said, like, human adaptability. The curve of the human adaptability is actually not catching up with the technology changes. Even us, to be honest, from civil engineering education perspective, sometimes like my students like, hey, did you hear about this? It's like, no, what's this new technology? My students start to come with startup, and the startup is catching up more and more. It's like, no, I can't catch up on all of these things. I like the statistics that now it's all over the news, showing how many years it took a specific technology to have 50 million users using it. I remember that airplanes, like around 68 years or 67, cars, I think 62 years just to reach 50 million users using cars. I think like cell phones, like maybe 10, 12 years, and all of a sudden you have Twitter, you have 2 years just used to find 50 million users for it. And then I looked, there is a game called Pokemon. It took them 19 days to reach 50 million users. So I can't catch up with that. That's why in the book, it highlights that we are actually here, and it shows that we literally need to learn faster and learn smarter just to catch up with what technologies. Personally speaking, I don't know, John, what do you think about that? Like, I don't believe we are doing good in education. In what aspect? When one of the presentations I'm going to copy here, highlighting this guy showing the cell phone around several decades ago, let's say 20, 30 years or 20 years ago, compared to the cell phone now. It's a dramatic change. Like, oh wow, it's everything here. And then they show the car, how it was 20 or 30 years ago compared to the car now. Tesla with hybrid, electrical. And then he showed a picture of the classroom 30 years ago and the picture of the classroom today. It's exactly the same. No change whatsoever. There's minor change, but it's still similar methodology. That's why I said, you know what, I'm gonna put this. And then I also highlight also the people aspect, which is the second example I'm gonna give you, which is the Coursera. Coursera, I don't know if anyone familiar with Coursera. It's basically, for those who doesn't know, it's a platform that started by Stanford University. It's not with Stanford anymore. Around maybe 9 years ago, by 2 professors, which they put actually best courses from the top universities around the world for almost for free. I understand this year they changed the business model. I think you pay $50 per month and you take as many classes as you like. And they have now how many users? They have like 38 million users. edX by MIT. They have, I think, like 25 or 28 million users. Audacity, the same. So it's catching up. So the idea why I'm mentioning that, they introduced what they call like MOOC courses. The MOOC courses refers to massive open online course. Massive because literally each class, it can reach not hundreds, but can reach thousands of people taking it. Open because it's open for everyone. You can actually watch the classes for free, specific modules. With the change now, I believe you just like pay just a few dollars and then you can watch as many as you want online, but because literally you need just like an internet. You can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on your iPad, on your computer. Course, because they divide the course into around 4 or 5 weeks, and each week they divide it into what we call modules, around 2.5 hours. And these modules of the 2.5 hours, you can't find one module that more than 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Why? Because the literature showed that learner, after a while, they get bored. It's like after 5 to 10 minutes, like, yeah, I don't want to just like sit for an hour, Ibrahim. So what I did, I still remember my colleague, Professor Patricia Colligan, Trish, which she gonna come here on Saturday. So like, Ibrahim, what about you go do? I tried it. It's fantastic. And then why you don't do it yourself? It's like, in what way, Trish? It's like you can do project management. It's like, okay, let me read about it. And I read about it, and I found a lot of classes about project management in Coursera, in edX, in many other of these platforms. And then I didn't find anything about construction. It's like, call Trish, and by the way, Trish, there's nothing about construction. And it's like, okay, let's pitch this idea for them. And they explained to them, like, what about we have construction management instead of project management? It's like, what's the difference? It's like, there is a difference. That's why one of the modules I highlighted, I showed the differences between CM to project management to program management. My colleague from McKinsey, I got him, and he explained very clearly. So, and instead of doing money class, I was actually lucky, I consider myself, and in the right time, the right place, you name it, that I was the first professor in the US that introduced the construction management class as a MOOC. And it was then a domino effect. A couple of universities that colleagues of mine started calling me, like, oh, how did you do this, how do you do that? So I started to consult with them and advise them, okay, do this. And this is what I was hoping for. From a money perspective, it's not generating the money, it's not for profit. And I'm happy some of these things, it's worth than $1 million. And basically, I introduced 4 classes instead of 1. And we call it specialization. And I invited 20 people from the industry, my colleagues from companies like McKinsey, like the World Economic Forum, like Skanska, like AECOM, like smaller companies, like STV Gilbane, all the way to lawyers from Dentons and many others, came all together and recorded these classes with me. Why? Because I believe when we talk about construction management, it's about bridging between theory and the practice. If I start talking about the theory, it's like, okay, Ibrahim, yeah, books is nice, but we want, what's the practicality of our industry? That's my humble contribution was to it. So I recorded around 50%, and the other reason I don't want everyone to get bored with my face. So I just want many other faces, and it worked very, very well. And one class, the 4 classes, one on project planning and what you need to do before you even think about building the project, and then scheduling and cost management, and then construction finance. Even construction finance, I look at it from the basic, the mathematics of money, the time value of money, and then I built two branches out of it. One focusing on the vertical construction and real estate finance, and one focusing on infrastructure development, PPP, and project finance. This is what I like. In 2 years, around 50,000 people finished these classes. And 2018, every week, we kept sustain an average of 350 new learners every week from 190 countries. I still remember in June 2018, I gave a keynote speak in Cartagena, Colombia, and literally, I was telling Ravina, there was like 1,600 people in the audience. At the end, it's like, hey, you know what? Like, out of curiosity, like, how many people took my class? This class? Around 60 or 70 people raised their hands. Like, I don't know them. I have no idea who are they. And then when I went, they started like asking some questions. I started talking with them. I love it. But in what aspect? Again, not for the money. You are giving back one of the best educations we have from an Ivy League school for free. So that's changing. Hopefully, back to the education and the classroom pictures, hopefully that will be changing even more and more. And back connecting it with the future of construction, there's a lot of students, a lot of new learners from different ages. They come to these kind of classes, they want to take it because they don't want to go to take a degree from scratch. They want to customize their degree. They want to customize, I want to know CM, I want to go to Autodesk to learn this software, from Revit to implement BIM, I want to go learn this kind of coding to be able to integrate all this in drones and have my own startup. By the way, this case happened. So this, I believe, is going to be continue changing, and we have more and more courses coming. And these courses, I'm hoping we move from just theoretical perspective all the way to actually practicality of these courses. What exactly we are implementing, not just from construction, but all other disciplines. So just in conclusion, based on what I talked about the environment and the trends that are shaping, I highly believe we all have a role to play here. From an owner, from a subcontractor, from an educator, from a technology, engineer, suppliers. And I believe that traditionally slow innovation, our construction is starting to move, and I start to see more quickly movement happening. I had like kind of, let me wrap up with this, I had this kind of habit I developed in the last 2 years to look at commencement speeches. And for the last 2 years, 3 years, something like that, I started to just look at what commencement speeches that are happening in top schools. Most of the speakers, they always use the word entrepreneurship in their talk, always. All of a sudden, the idea of entrepreneurship starts to show up more, even in civil engineering department. We have a class called Entrepreneurship for Civil Engineers. In addition to that, I started to see good kind of a practice from several companies. I consulted for free in the last just 2 years on developing a platform for them that focusing on corporate university. Because they are telling me, their employees, that they want to integrate these kind of courses inside their learning habit and career development, and start to come more and more raising up, because they don't want them to go just like to school. They want them to do just like a short course, preferably online, and then, hey, Professor, come, just give a talk here and go back. We don't need it anymore. We have your classes, we have the online thing. So I'm hoping with this, help a little bit to summarize what we did in our project for the future of construction, from its environment, the trends that are shaping it, and what we're proposing with some examples of best practices, and all the rest of the best practices examples I can of course share it because of the time limitation in the report. Thank you.